Welcome to the Big Time Strength Podcast, featuring small school strength coaches making the big time where they're at. Today, our host, Coach Preston Peterson, interviews a high school strength coach who is creating a big time strength conditioning experience for their student athletes. Today's episode is sponsored by TeamBuildr. TeamBuildr provides strength conditioning software to athletics programs around the country. Whether you write your own programs or want access to over 100 templates, TeamBuildr can make your program more efficient, more accountable, and smarter when it comes to measuring your team's effort in the weight room. Visit their website and start a 14-day free trial at TeamBuildr.com. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the episode.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Big Time Strength Podcast. Today's episode is also sponsored by Optimum Nutrition. Athletes train hard to play at the highest level, and all that hard work raises the need for muscle recovery. Optimum Nutrition's athletics program has industry-leading products that can help. Protein is key to muscle recovery, and Gold Standard 100% Whey, the world's best-selling whey protein powder, provides 24 grams of protein that mixes easily using just a glass and spoon. Gold Standard 100% Whey is made in Optimum Nutrition's state-of-the-art facilities in Aurora, Illinois, and is banned substance tested by Informed Choice. Through Optimum Nutrition's athletic program, you can also get Pro Gainer for athletes looking to become bigger and ready to eat protein snacks, including protein crisp bars, cake bites, protein wafers, and protein almonds. After dominating the sports nutrition industry for over 30 years, newly created Optimum Nutrition Athletics brings the same trust and quality that knows how to put convenient options for protein in the hands of athletes who desire to become bigger, stronger, and better at their sport. Email Derek Walters, Director of Optimum Nutrition Athletics, at dwalters@glambia.com for more information and to get free samples sent to your facility for your athletes to sample and provide feedback. Now, here is today's episode. Coach Mark Hoover is the Director of Strength and Conditioning at York Comprehensive High School and is in his 22nd year in coaching. He has coached high school football for 17 years. He also was a grad assistant for 2 years at Edinboro University of Pennsylvania. His last 4 years, he has been strictly strength and conditioning. Coach spent 6 years at Piedmont High School in Monroe, North Carolina, before moving to York Comprehensive High School in 2017. Coach Hoover is a proud original member of the NHS SCA. If you enjoyed today's episode, please check out Coach's SimpliFaster article that's linked in the show notes. All right, Coach Hoover, thank you very much for coming on the show this week. It's a great opportunity just to hear from a coach that has so much experience. And I was actually I first read some of your stuff on SimpliFaster. It was a great article. I encourage other people to check it out. I'll link it in the show notes. But that was the first time that I'd seen some of Coach Hoover's stuff, and reached out to him, and Coach was willing to come on the show, share his information, and I'm excited to pick his brain a little bit. Coach, can you start out with giving us your background?
Yeah, and I appreciate you wanting to talk to me, and I appreciate the kind words too. It's really an honor to be on your podcast, man. I've listened to it, and it's good stuff, and I love doing this kind of stuff, and I'm very honored. So where I've been, I've been doing this coaching since the late '90s. I'm originally from Western Pennsylvania, and I got into coaching high school football up there right out of college, and kind of just, at that point, you're the big guy that lifts weights. In the late '90s, there wasn't a strength. I didn't even really probably think about strength coaches too much. We didn't even have one. I played at a small college, and our strength coach was just one of the assistant football guys, and but what happens usually a lot of times, even now, is that the guy that's the weightlifting guy on the staff ends up in the weight room with the kids and coming up with the stuff. And, it wasn't anything original. We were doing bigger, faster, stronger. And that was my initial. And that's just kind of how I rolled for maybe the first 8 to 10 years of my career. I was coaching football, and I was a strength coach for the football team. But to say I was a strength coach I was more like the weight room coach, the weight room guy. And then about 10 years after that, I was at West Forsyth High School in Winston-Salem North Carolina with head coach Adrian Snow, and I was running it there. Him and I together run it there, and he called me in and he said, "Hey man, you do a great job in there, but I want to do even better. I want to figure out a way we can get an advantage over our other teams. We're one of the bigger high schools in the state. We're tough competition." He was like, "I want you to not just be good at the weight room stuff. I want you to be great. Let's figure out how we can get you to, really take this to the next level." I was like, "Hey, yeah, I'm all for it, And we were lucky enough to have Ethan Reeves' son on our team, our JV team, who was outstanding strength coach at Wake Forest. I believe he's moved on now, but and basically he said we have open access. And so I started going over there, and it was kind of just a eye-opening experience to see, great strength coaches at work. And at that moment in time, I would say 11, 12 years ago, I started to make that switch from a football coach that was doing the weight room to a strength coach that coached football to, a strength coach that was just, a strength coach. And after spending some time at Wake and having, a couple years going up there anytime I had a chance to, and I spent a lot of time up there, Coach Reeve, really laid things out for me. And during that time, I decided to start looking at some further my education in exercise science. And the more I got into that, the more I wanted to work on some certifications and things like that. And that kind of led me through the next few years of coaching football and really working with our football programs at the school I was at, or schools I was at during those times. I would say I started picking up some of the other sports, wrestling a little bit, helping out with wrestling a little bit, and a little bit with basketball. When I went to Piedmont High School in 2012, I went there as a football coach, strength coach. After the first few years there, I was working with a lot of the teams in the summer and then having to kind of step away in the fall. I was working as a coordinator, and so I was kind of walking that line. And after a few years of that, I had so much demand from, other sports. The volleyball was wanting to get there, basketball, all the different sports wanting to get in there. And by that point, I had went on working on my master's degree. I went on to get various certifications. So I'd kind of started to think about getting out of sports and just strictly getting into the world of sports performance. And because it is so hard, I really look at these coaches, and there's a lot of sport coaches that do a great job as a strength coach as well. For me, I just couldn't spend the time. I found myself more interested in spending time working on the strength conditioning program and our speed programs for different sports than I wanted to spend on football. And at that point, I knew I was going to have to get out of football. And I went to our principal, who was just an amazing guy. And I said, this is what I want to do. I want to be the head coach of our strength conditioning program. I want to, and he was like, "You be happy getting out of football?" And I said, "Yeah, that's what I want to do." And he said, "Well, let's do it." So we created a strength conditioning position at Piedmont High School in Monroe, North Carolina, where I was there for a little over 6 years. And we just kind of built from there. And then that led to my job I'm currently at York Comprehensive High School in York, South Carolina. Just, getting to know guys, other strength coaches. The guy that had been there, John Herschel, left, and he went to high school, Saraland High School in Alabama, and he gave them my name. We were friends through, professional, associations, and it just kind of rolled from there. And then I'm 2 years in there now, and that's where we're at.
That's awesome, Coach. Can you give us a little bit of a rundown of how your day is set up? So there's strength coaches that are before school, after school. Some of them are right during the day. Just a lot of different situations going on. Can you give us what your day looks like?
Yeah, we have most of our kids in class, and then we also have an after-school program. Our football it's split into 2 semesters. In the fall semester, we have basically male and female athlete classes during the day that come in. We're kind of in a transition mode right now from going individual sport classes. I think we're going to kind of strictly get away from that, except for maybe in football because of the pure numbers. But so we've got male and female classes, and sometimes those 2 groups will be mixed, and we kind of like I'll be in there with a sport coach, so we might have females for a couple, rotate like that. But throughout the day, I'll have, in the fall, I have football the last block of the day, and then throughout the day after that, I have various athletes in and out. And then after school, we run 2 sessions, depending on the time of the year. If just depending on the amount of athletes I have at that time, we'll do in-season, out-of-season session after school. Right now, almost all of my out-of-season athletes are in class, so we're just kind of doing it as one session right now. But that is my fall schedule. In the spring, where we're at right now, I've got 2 varsity football classes, first and second block, and then my third period. We're on block schedule with 4 periods. My third period of the day is freshman athletes. So our numbers are a little bit less this year than they were last, but we can handle up to 60 kids, which isn't what a lot of coaches are handling, but that's where our weight room can hold without us getting too overcrowded, is 60. So we've been up to in the 50s with our freshmen during that class, and that is all males. And then the last block of the day is actually my planning period. But during that block, we have our soccer teams, baseball, softball. This year we don't have basketball. They're lifting after school. But, so those would be the 4 teams. And they're in a class, that block, with their coach. And I'm in and out with them at that time, just depending on if I can be in there. If something calls me away, then the coach handles it. But I do the programming for it. And then, again, in the spring, we do the after-school program.
That's a good rundown, Coach. And we have summer coming up here soon, right? And that looks different for different coaches around the United States. For us, I just was on this past week with a coach that he's in Iowa with me, and in Iowa we have sports that are still in season. But for most of the United States, it's kind of an off season, and everybody's getting some training done. What does that look like for you guys? How do you go about with your training during summer?
Our female athletes, now our schedule's changing a little bit this year. Our female athletes are going to go first this year because some of our female coaches have different schedules. So we'll have a session of female athletes in the morning. Then we'll have from 9 to 12, I will be strictly with football. And we're going Monday through Thursday, strictly with football. And then if the demand is there for our other males, a lot of times our basketball guys will end up, because so many of those guys cross over with football, they'll end up lifting with our football. I'll have another session after that with other male athletes where we'll see wrestling, baseball guys. The bat and ball sports in the summer, at that level, we got a baseball and softball are just great sports at York. There's a lot of traveling, so they're kind of in and out. But so I'll be down to school Monday through Thursday from 7:30-ish till 1:30 or so on those 4 days. And then we got our dead week in there in around the 4th of July. But other than that, we'll be rolling straight through to August.
That's a great setup, Coach. I think the opportunity to have kids come in during the summer, get that awesome work in, and then be able to, go to their sport practices and all that type of stuff is a big deal, just to have the year-round training for all your athletes available to you.
Yeah, and our coaches do a great job of scheduling their, so volleyball, for example, our coach is off campus, so they have to practice early. So they're going to come in and practice early in the morning, and then their practice will finish with our weight room session. And then our girls basketball will actually start after our weightlifting session and then go for the time after that. And then football, we'll have like an hour with our freshmen, an hour with our JV, and our hour with our varsity guys. And what they'll do in the offsetting times or our speed work and practice, depending on what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it works out pretty good. It gets pretty busy this summer, and but that's good. That's what we want.
Just listening to you, it sounds like you're a pretty organized dude. One of the things I want to pick your brain on is some of your favorite resources or tools or anything you use to optimize your programming, how you set up training. What does your workflow look like?
Well, the biggest thing is TeamBuildr, and I'm sure, Train Heroic's probably just as good, and, but, and those other programs probably all, but TeamBuildr for me, I've been with TeamBuildr for maybe 4 years now, 3.5, 4 years. And that took, what I was doing. I had a nice Excel program that allowed me to print out sheets for the kids. And the one I had was I could print out a 4-week block and, all the weights in there. But what I was finding was, we use APRE and plus sets and sometimes so we're not just testing once every 8 weeks, we're kind of changing things as we go. And, my rule was if they had a +2 on their APR set and their main lift 2 weeks in a row, I'd bump their max up 5 pounds. Well, I was spending hours and hours and hours on Sunday printing out. Because I had, block 1, my new lifter, my novice lifter, my advanced lifter, my elite lifter. So blocks 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then I also had them on calendars of, like a spring athlete, a fall athlete, a winter athlete, a spring, winter. And what I was trying to do was I was printing all their sheets out, so I'm printing out all these, and I was doing it by color. So like spring was blue or, green or something, and it was just like, it was never ending for me, printing and figuring things. And when I had a chance to get TeamBuildr, it changed my life. It went from like legitimately spending 6 hours on a Sunday, coming up with a thing, doing the programming and then figuring out, okay, I got to put green paper in and blue paper in. But for me to just print out sheets and let them, I just had a different vision for how we were going to do things. And I wanted a way to separate it, for each kid. And they, the workouts my whole weight room looked like, because I just have them tape their workouts next to the rack, and it would so the whole weight room was just covered in paper. And, I was going in there and rehanging sheets all the time. TeamBuildr came along, and it was like, what have I been doing? So TeamBuildr is my biggest thing. I don't know that, I could go back and do it the other way now, but it would be awful. That's my main go-to thing. We use push bands for, actually I just wrote another article for SimpliFaster about how we use our push bands with different groups. With football, we use it just with our elite athletes for the most part, because we're truly trying to take them to velocity-based, training, whereas I use it with my females a little bit different, because once, especially like with our hex bar deadlift, because I want to show them with actual facts, numbers, that they're stronger than they think they are. Because that's the big battle with a lot of times with female athletes is they look at that, oh, that's way too much weight. And it's like, no, you can get that. And, the push band, with the meters per second, I can show them, all right, that's only 51% of your max, basically, and, we use we've got iPads. Actually, it's a mixture of things. I've got a big cart that the technology construction people made for me, and I wrote on the side of it, York Strength Conditioning Mobile Sports Performance Lab or unit, and I've got like 5 laptops, I've got 3 Kindles, I've got a couple other tablets, I've got 3 iPads, and I only got like 3 old iPhones. So I've got all this different things going, but other than that's pretty much what we use as far as technology and resources go.
That's awesome, Coach. I want to dig in a little bit more to your push bands.
Okay.
I had first heard of Push. I think it's a Canadian company, right? I had heard of Push 3 or 4 years ago. They were just starting out, and they had reached out to the staff at Northwest Missouri State, and we were looking into them. And it was really, really interesting stuff. But some of the stuff at the beginning, they just weren't sure. A lot of coaches weren't sure how accurate all that type of stuff. Fast forward, technology, all that stuff. 3 or 4 years later, tell me about it. Is this a viable option that, like you see at Tendo units are like $2,000 or some crazy amount. Is this something that you can purchase for high school athletes? Is it reasonable?
Yes, it's like 300 and some. I mean, they might be 400, but I had 2 of the older versions I traded in and then got 2 more. There was a deal going on. So I have 4 of them. But here's what kind of the timeline for me was. I was so excited. And I put this in that. I'm not sure when that article's going to come out with SimpliFast, sometime the next couple of weeks. But I was at a clinic and I heard Gary Schofield, the great Coach Schofield, who just has done so much for me. And I mean, it's just, I could talk about that all night. But he was talking about he was using a Tendo. Well, I looked into that, and like you said, man, I mean, that would be awesome to have, but they're like $3,000, So it doesn't, it didn't. Well, and I came across the push bands, and I got a couple of them, and I liked them. And there was a NSCA Journal of Strength Conditioning put out an article that said they were almost as accurate as just within a small percentage. But the problem that I had that kept me from using them up until recently was them attaching to the athlete. We do not have, with a limited time in a day, in a period to get kids through their workout, the time it was taken from them to take the sleeve off, put the sleeve on. Sometimes you had to, you had different sized kids, and it became where basically you had to have 1 unit for 1 kid. And so I had a small group using it, but I wasn't able to use it as a daily tool. We were using it for reactive strength index, hooking it to the belt, and that's how I was testing my volleyball players with that, using that information. So things like that. But then they kind of it just became, more of where it was just like a one-on-one thing. So they kind of went away for a while, and they got put away. And then when they came out with the 2.0 and had bar mode, I said, now we might have something going. So I called them up, and they traded out for, it was incredible. It was like $100. When they first came out, you could trade in your old one for like 100, 120. I can't remember. It was a crazy deal. So I went ahead and did it, and we're able to hook to the bar. And now all of a sudden, all you have to have is, you got your device, and the kids just changed their name, and so you can use it all just like you would use TeamBuildr. And we started, and it's really good. It's really good. I would highly recommend it. I'm sure that, from the affordability standpoint, that's the thing. If I had the ability to have, because the tendo unit is like the gold standard, If I had the money, I would have the tendo units, But, for us, it's like we just don't. So the push band was a great alternative. And if it's not to the millionth of a second as accurate as a tendo, I mean, you're still moving faster because of it, So we use it. Yeah, I've got up to 16 football players using it because I've got 4. I could actually go to right now with my 2 classes. I could actually use it up to 32. But for our football guys, I only use it with the guys that have got to either are real close to being our elite block guys, or they've advanced, but maybe they just don't have the right percentages of body weight to strength, but their technique's really good, because if you're using that with poor technique, it's kind of like, maybe you should work on your technique before you attach them to a accelerometer, but but we use that with those guys, and I will put them in a speed range. We've got kind of a chart that I stole from Gary Schofield. He uses a tendo, and I adjusted a little bit to what push had for their specifications, and it's kind of like an APRE chart. Sometimes we'll use it that way, and other times I will just assign the kids based on their 1 rep max, and we'll use it like APRE, where on that test set, instead of going for a +2 or, to try to get extra reps and then adjust, I'll put the tendo unit on there, or not the tendo unit, the push unit on there. And, if they're moving it faster than that percentage says they should be, well, then I'll tell them to add a little bit of weight, So it's kind of like an APRE thing in that way. And then there's other times when we say, all right, we're shooting for 0.3 to 0.5, in your last 2 sets. With our females now, I do have some girls now, specifically our volleyball and soccer girls, where I have a couple of girls with each team that is actually using it that way. For a lot of my females, what I do is we start them off with we use the high handle hex bar deadlift as kind of our big, pull from the floor, and I will hook it to the bar and just let them lift a little bit, so that, once they've got their technique down, so that they can see, when they look at, like, for example, and in the article, I mentioned this particular athlete. We have a volleyball player that's one of my elite athletes now, but she's going to be a senior. But when we first started, she weighs 100 pounds. And so she would put 100 or 115 pounds on that deadlift bar, and she'd be like, that's heavy. But she was moving it so fast, and I'd say, girl, you are stronger than that. You got great technique. Let's have I don't know, Coach, I don't know. Well, see, that's kind of one of the things you learn with female athletes is that weight sometimes. Not all of them, but some of them, it kind of intimidates them. It's the number that intimidates them. So I put that push band on there, and I said, all right, basically, here's the range you're shooting for. For your 80 to 85%, this is what your range should be. She pulls, and she's like, holy cow, I'm a lot faster than that. Exactly. So what's that tell you? That I need to be, that I need to add a little weight. That's right. Slow. We're not going to make a big jump, but, and it slowly got her and a couple other girls that they're now my elite lifters to realize, all right, we can do this and add some weight. And I've got a couple female athletes that are just beast mode, and they're not scared of the weight, and they get in there and great technique and lift hard. But for most of them, that push band helps me to let them see, at least on that particular lift, that they're stronger than they think, and it kind of helps them break through that little barrier that they have, that mental barrier. Mm-hmm. Now, we won't use it for the squat or for other lifts until they've gone to the elite level. But with the high-handed hex bar deadlift, we can get that technique down so much quicker at an earlier training age that they can master that lift way before they master the back squat or the other things. So I hope I'm not getting too long with you.
No, that's the one I wanted to dig
Long-winded.
deeper with, man. That was great stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that they had switched to a bar mode where you could do that stuff.
It's when they did that, and I told them that when I called them, I said, man, when you guys did bar mode, now the next thing they need to do, and even if they hear this, it'll be okay, because I've told them this, and they keep saying it's coming. They gotta use it. They gotta get it for Android too, not just for the iPhone, because really to do it, I found you have got to have a dedicated device that you use day in and day out for that push band, and then it just connects automatically. Then everything's there. You don't have to worry about it. But the problem is, so many devices that are affordable are Android. Like if I could hook those things to my Kindle, well, you can get a Kindle for like $75,
Right.
And it works great for TeamBuildr. I mean, great for TeamBuildr, but it won't work for push. It has to be an Apple device, and they're just harder to come by, at the school. So
no doubt.
That would be my one thing that I would say. But they told me they're working on it. So if they ever do that, then, it's really something good. It really is.
Coach, it sounds like you might follow Brian Mann's work a little bit with the APRE, and then you're doing some velocity-based training. That is an awesome deal. I think the cool part about that is just seeing how you implement that at the high school level. What's that look like? And you've kind of given us a picture so far. I want you to maybe dig deeper into maybe your overall training philosophy. So if someone were to ask you about your strength program, what would you tell them about your philosophy on training high school athletes, and maybe dig into a little bit of your programming styles, your methodologies, and what you found success with?
Okay. I would say, we're ground-based, Olympic-based, on 2 feet most of the time to start with, lifting like most people are. We do use Olympic lifts. We have, and I'm a big believer in it, but we do it in a progression. We have a very set progression, the way we do things with our Olympic lifts, but we're, if I might have my new lifters doing a loaded jump, my novice lifters that same day would be doing a pull, where my advanced lifters might be doing, a pull to a clean, things like that. But everything we do, we try to be technically sound. Obviously, progression and regression is a big part of what we do. Everything we do, I try to do it in an evidence-based manner, and that's in that article you said, we were talking about earlier that I did with SimpliFaster interview. That why is if I can explain why we do something, then we'll do it. And if I can't, then there's no use in doing it. I think that's what separates. When I look back at my time when I was coaching football, I was doing and doing strength a lot of those years. I was doing something, and the why was because somebody else that I know that's successful as a football coach is doing it. And, that could be a good reason, but, to really be good at what we do, we need to know why that particular athlete is doing that particular thing at that particular moment. So everything we do, I have to be able to answer that in my mind before I even program it. We're Olympic-based philosophy. We use a modified tier system, and we're not chasing numbers per se as the argument. And I'm kind of in that gray. I'm going to argue that we are chasing numbers ultimately, but the path to those numbers needs to be a solid one and taught in a solid manner. And we try to do that as much as we can. I guess that's not a very good explanation, but, we just try to do everything technically sound, teach it, from step one to the full lift, and make sure our kids understand how to movement over max for sure. And I love that. I haven't got that book yet, but I'm going to get that book and read it because I just love, move well, move fast, then move strong, and then if you do all those three things, then you're going to be able to thrive in the weight room and on the field. And another big thing that I preach is we need to translate anything we do, is translate it to the field, or the court. That's it sounds like an obvious statement, but I can tell you just from my experience, not everybody's doing that, and I wasn't always doing that. I was kind of that guy early on in my career. I was strong. My coaches always pushed me to be strong. We never talked about bar speed or, so, trying to get away a little bit from that training heavy and slow thing, because, there's a time and a place for that. I'm not saying that we don't max, because we do. I'm not saying that we don't lift over 90% once in a while, because our elite kids will, get in there for maybe 4 or 5% of their volume for a certain day. But training fast is what we do. Bar speed. We call this sweet spot, that kind of 70 to 85%. Get in there and move the bar as fast as you can. That's the basis of it. So, I've gotten away from, I care about the numbers. We all care about the numbers, but the number I want to see is on the scoreboard, so how can we make sure what we do translates to sport? And, one thing that, the science tells us, the evidence tells us, is the faster you move in that bar, the more powerful you're going to be. And that is going to lead to success on the, in the sport. And that's our whole point. We're not powerlifting coaches. We're not, I guess if you're an Olympic weightlifting coach, that's a little bit different, but our goal isn't, it'd be great to have if you got a guy that can squat 650 pounds, that's awesome. But, is that really translating to sport all that much? Maybe. But, maybe not, depending on how much he weighs and his size and things like that. But, that guy could probably be just as good at sports squatting 450 pounds as fast as he possibly can, probably even better.
Coach, I want to ask you more about what you see as key performance indicators then, because one of the things you talked about in your article was you kind of have these levels or blocks based off of maybe their body weight, how big they are, where you think they should be at. If it's a squat, they should be 2 times their body weight, or whatever the formula might be, and up to a certain point, strength is important. And I would say
yes,
that
no
you cannot, as a strength coach, we cannot downplay that at all. But I'm in the same boat with you with the bar speed. It has to be there if we want to be powerful athletes, but we have to move well. And I know we have to move fast before all these things mixing together, or move strong before we move fast, but all these things mixing together, it's really tough for us to truly take a look at how strong is strong enough. And I want to know, what are the things that you're measuring, whatever you talked about, maybe a weekly basis, or maybe even more with some of the APRE stuff that you're doing. What are some of the things you're measuring to say, yes, we are making this person a better athlete?
Just real quick, I'll say that I think strong enough is kind of like in the eye of the coach, It's kind of like you just know it when you see it. I saw, Kurt Hester posted something on Twitter the other day. He tweeted something out about
I saw that.
his quarterback. Yeah, and I responded. I thought, that's the gray area that we're all trying to find, is where's that risk reward tip, and there's probably no exact answer because it's probably depends on the kid and the day, But what I did to answer your question is I kind of took, again, Coach Schofield and Micah Kurtz, another unbelievable strength coach, is a good friend of mine. Early on in the process of me kind of figuring out how I was going to do things in a more specific, evidence-based way, they both kind of shared with me some information about body weight, and Coach Schofield sent me a document, and he got to talking about, he said, I'll just send you the document, you can take a look at it. And he had it not just in body weight, so, all right, 2 times body weight, for the back squat. Well, if you weigh 135 pounds, you're going to hit 2 times body weight easy if you're lifting for your whole high school career, on the back squat. But if you weigh 320 pounds, how are you ever going to get there, right? It's going to be tough. Not all 300-pound linemen are going to squat 600. Well, he had it split down into body frame and body weight, and I scooped that up, and I had to make adjustments because, everybody's athletes are different. But how I do it is I have a sheet, and I actually just called looking at it right now, where I've got body frame, and then height, weight, body frame, and then a number built in there. So, for example, our smaller athletes, which would be quarterback, receiver type guys, DB type guys, for bench press, our goal for them is to be at 1.35 times body weight. But our larger athletes, we want them to be able to bench their body weight. And then, that's kind of where we're going. And then what we do is we put in there a percentage of that, combined with, we also use our back squat and our hex bar deadlift, and it combines in there to give me a total, and then what percentage of that total are they. So, and that's kind of step one in how we figure out where to block them. So, if you're at 92% or better of that total, then technically you're in our block 4, which is our elite block. If you're at 92 to 85%, then you're in 3. If you're under 85%, then you're in 2. And if you're a new lifter, you're going to automatically start in 1. So I just I put that into a sheet, and it gives me a percentage. And then I look at their vertical, their broad jump, and technique, obviously. And I'm not going to put an athlete in, I'm not going to count as lift if it's, if we go to technical failure, when we max out, and I don't max out all of our athletes, but I do max out football because it's just like something that coaches want, the players want. It's a big deal. So we do that on occasion, but I won't just take those numbers, plug them in, and say, all right, you're block 4. I'm going to come. That's just kind of a starting spot for that. Their technique has to be, they're just the way, that we progress them like that. And then, from there, we will do a max every 8 weeks of football. We'll go 2 4-week cycles and do a max. And then also within those 4 weeks, I'll do an APRE. Now, I used to do it a lot more. I used to do an APRE with almost every big lift. Like, on Mondays is when we hex bar deadlift. On Wednesdays is when we squat. And on Fridays is when we bench. And I used to do that a lot, where we do use an APRE in those. Now I kind of have cut back, and we do it about once every during those 4 weeks, and I kind of adjust there. And then I use just my coach's eye to kind of go from there. And, if a guy is just feeling really good that day and on one of his sets toward the end, he wants to go for an extra, set or an extra rep, we just adjust it in TeamBuildr. But so we put those guys and girls into those, and I've got two different, I've got a female category and a male category. So our boys back squat is our middle group, kind of our, fullbacks, linebackers, tight ends. We're looking at 2 times body weight. Our smaller group, we're looking at 2.25, but our larger group, we're looking at 1.75. So, just depending on your frame, the position you play, and how much you weigh is what your goal is going to be. And then we try to work up towards that goal.
I like that breakdown, Coach. One of the things that stands out to me is that you said you use, if it's a 4-week cycle, you use APRE once. Right now, the way that I program it, and I do it, I'm not like a true APRE like what you'd find in Dr. Mann's manual, but more so like a reps by volume, a little bit different.
Yes.
Something that I saw by Mark Watts, and I think Mark Watts was referencing Gary Schofield also on that. I really like that system, but I use it week in and week out. And then after cycle is done, we'll shift down and we'll move toward a higher percentage. Tell me what you're doing in between. Are you just programming like a percentage range? What's it look like for those other weeks?
All right. Well, I'm going on to my second year of using volume as our main programming thought and intensity second.
Mm-hmm.
It's the book, The System.
Yeah.
I actually learned that from Tony Decker at Coastal Carolina about a year and a half ago. And, he explained how Coach Parker had taught him the system. I actually saw him at a clinic, and he kind of explained it, just the overview of it. And I thought, I need to know more about this. So I went down and talked about how, you start with how you split up your volume and you start low and you're working towards a certain. So that's, and then we use intensity ranges. So,
yeah.
For example, we'll start, our goal at the end. So what we're building toward with our elite athletes is 875 total reps per month, for 6 counting lifts: squat, presses, pulls, cleans, snatches, and posterior chain. So we'll put what I do is, so it's kind of like just a big math equation. I learned this directly from Coach Decker, and then was lucky enough to form a relationship with Coach Johnny Parker, who brought the system from the Russian coaches, and he's been an unbelievable resource. I call him and ask him questions all the time, and he has been amazing, because you go right to the horse's mouth on this thing. And so you divide that up over 4 weeks. You've got a heavy week, a big week, a moderate week, and a light week. And there's a percentage of that 875 reps total. Now that's at the end. We probably started with 450 reps for our elite guys, and then work up. We'll start with 350 reps for our novice. And so it's kind of like you're building toward that 875 rep total at the end of their, if they're going into their senior year. And then we'll say, all right, 24, the squat is the lift that's going to affect our kids the most on the field. So 24% of those reps over that month are going to be squat reps. It could be back squat, could be front squat, could be anything that you're over 50% of your of intensity is going to count as a rep. And then so our pulls might be 20%, our presses might be 15%, and then you can adjust that based on how things are going. we maxed out, well, it's been 6 weeks ago now. Our deadlifts and our squats were, through the roof. Our bench was down a little bit. Now, I don't generally concern myself too much with bench press, but the kids do, the coaches do, So head coach and I sit down and talk. He said, I love these numbers. Can we do something about this? Absolutely. I take a few, a couple percentage points from snatch, a couple percentage points from clean, a couple percentage points from the squat, and I stick it on to our presses. So now the volume of our presses are up a little bit. Then as you're raising that volume, basically you're going 10% per 4-week cycle. So you start low and you're building towards 875. So you're going up 10%. You start at 875 and count back to your first cycle. Well, then you're going up 2% in your relative intensity. So we've got these intensity ranges where your relative intensity is going to be all intensities above 50% times whatever reps, and that gives you, and then divide it by and it gives you a number. So you might be at 50%, 60%, 70%, 80%. Well, your relative intensity there would probably be 70% or 68% or something like that. Well, that's the intensity that we count. So the next cycle through, you're trying to make sure that, so your volume goes up a little bit for each lift, and now you adjust your intensities so that you get a no more than 2% increase overall. So now my relative intensity, if it was 68% week 1 of cycle 1, and our reps, our total volume for, let's just say, squats were 23. Well, so 68%, how you set those up as individual sets, just look at Prilipin, and you just look what you need. All right, so now to get 23 reps at this percentage, I might only need 4, because you can go a little bit higher because the intensities, as you work closer, your sets are going to grow while your reps are going to decrease in order to get that volume. But now you're increasing 2%. So week 1, cycle 1 might be 23 reps of back squat at 68% relative intensity. Well, then cycle 2, week 1, you've went up. It'd be 2 to 3 reps. So now you might have 26 reps, but now you want to be at 70% relative intensity, and then you keep climbing throughout the year until you get to your 875 total reps, and your relative intensities are starting to get up there into the 80s. And then by that time, it's time to start kind of your preseason, and you start cutting back on your volume and on your percentage to start shifting more towards power as opposed to strength. And it's hard to explain unless you've read the book, The System, or you have a whiteboard to sit there and read. It makes a lot of sense. People that don't do it that way are probably going to go, that sounds really complicated, but it's really not. It's just a big math equation. And man, I'm telling you, once I got into it and started learning from these guys that learn directly from these guys, Coach Parker and Vermeil and those guys that wrote this book, I don't know do you know the story behind that? The book, The System.
Not fully, no. There's
6 NFL guys that all got together, and they wanted to find out, let's have there was a Russian guy named Coach Goldstein that had been a big time coach over in the Eastern Bloc, and because of his religious beliefs, he had to flee and come here. Well, he's working in New York City at some like a Jewish community center or something, and these guys find out he's there, so they decide to take their programs over to him and have him look at them. And these NFL guys, they're like the founding fathers of NFL strength conditioning, right? Well, the dude red pens the whole thing and just is like, this is awful. You Americans are so far off base with all this heavy. He was like, this is what you need to do. And they learned it all from him, and they kind of kept that in as a secret until recently, and the only people that really knew were the guys that had kind of mentored under and worked under them. And so what they decided to do as the coaches got older, this is what Coach Parker told me, was this was going to be their gift to strength conditioning, that their legacy was to kind of learn the things that they'd learned from the Russian way of doing things, that they then converted working with Coach Goldstein into something for American football. And then I worked with those guys to kind of convert it from what they were talking about, Coach Decker and Coach Parker at the college and the NFL level, and they've helped me, and other coaches too that are doing this, to make that conversion to high school. Because obviously, the college guys are doing 1,000 reps. The NFL guys are doing 1,200 reps. Well, the high school guys need to be doing less, and those type of things. So we have gone full flow over the last year and a half, and it's been outstanding. With and the big thing with those guys is, and it's changed my philosophy, is make the plates clang. Bar speed, bar speed, bar speed. It doesn't matter what weight's on there, move it fast, and the sweet spot for those guys, and then this came directly from, the Soviet way of doing things, was that 70 to 85%. That's the sweet spot. That translates to sport. If you're a power lifter, then don't do that. You need to be lifting heavier. But if you want to translate to sport, work the majority of your reps in that 70 to 85% range. Well, this number system keeps it that way. You can set up your math to dictate that you're in those ranges. Start low and work to those ranges, and you can. I have a spreadsheet now that I use, and I put in the numbers. This is how many reps I want a volume in this range and in this range, and it spits it out. All I do is look at it and say, all right, so I need to have this many reps. I look at Philippines chart. All right, that means it's going to be 6 sets. And I go and I look where I'm at percentage-wise, and we build it, and then I figure out the relative intensity, and boom, I put it in. And it just keeps changing every, it's really a wave system. I mean, you're waving up and down, high intensity, volume, intensity, volume, intensity, volume. And I'm telling you, Coach Parker told me himself that once you start using this, you'll never go back. And I talked to him on the phone just the other day. I was talking to him about what we need to do for spring ball. And he was like, didn't I tell you you'd never go back? I said, yes, sir, you absolutely did. And I never would, I don't think I will ever program again, any other way than this way. And the book, The System, pretty much covers it. That's that book is all those coaches together, each kind of contributed. And I'm kind of doing more of the Coach Parker way. But it's pretty spot on for the most part.
That's
Again,
awesome.
I just talked for like 30 minutes, so I just rambled, but
Coach, that's awesome stuff. People want to hear this. I'm still trying to finish up my notes. So my college strength coach, Joe Quinlan, he just recently has been talking to Johnny Parker, and he's been going through the system also. And it kind of the same thing that you framed up, that story, is something that he relayed to me. And basically the idea that Johnny Coach Parker wants to give back to strength and conditioning. So all these legends, continually investing in other people. That's awesome stuff. And I'm excited to learn more about this. I don't feel like I have my head wrapped around it. My coach from college, he tried to explain it to me, and it was
no, you have. I've read that book no less than 7 times from cover to cover. And then I still have to call Coach Parker. And he is the coolest dude you've ever met in your entire life. He's humble. He's down to earth. He told me at that clinic I talked to him the first time, he said, here's my number. Give me a call. And then I was gonna, it's kind of intimidating because you're like, all right, that's like, for most people, I say Coach Johnny Parker, and they're like, who? And I'm just like, he was Parcells' strength coach and all, and they're like, oh, okay. But for guys like us, we're like, oh my God, that's like
Yep.
It's like someone saying, hey, Bill Belichick wants you to call him. If you're a football, you're like, what? Nick Saban wants to talk to me? What? And it's like, so I finally sent him a friend. His name popped up on Facebook, and I sent him a friend request a couple months ago. And he sent me back a message and said, Coach, just call me. He's like, I don't really do Facebook. He said, I'm going to get on there and get a bunch of posts about people that I don't know, about things that I don't care, when really all I want to do is talk to you about strength conditioning. He's like, so just call me. I said, okay, Coach, I appreciate it. Well, he said, now, please don't be the guy. He said, because this happens to me every week. He said, don't be the guy that says, I'll call you, Coach, and then doesn't call. And I was like, Coach, I'll call. So 2 weeks later, I hadn't called yet. Why? I mean, I look back now, I was like, just a few months ago, but I was like, man, what was I thinking? Like, after having talked to him. But again, man, it's kind of intimidating. Like, what am I going to say to Coach Johnny Parker? Well, once you talk to him, you realize it's not going to be like that. So I got a message from him just out of the blue that said, don't worry, Coach, you're not the first coach that won't call, and you won't be the last. And I was like, it kind of like guilted me. And I was like, oh, Coach, don't. I was like, no, I'll call you. I'll call you today. Can I call you today? He's like, yeah, how about you call me in 15 minutes? I was like, all right, I will. I got to talk to him, and you want to talk about just a country, down to earth, storytelling, like you'll talk about percentages and volume and Russian wave system, and then he'll be like, and here's a story about the New York Giants, and then he's talking to you about, like, I asked him about Joe Morris. I don't know, you're probably not old enough to remember these guys from the 80s and 90s, but I asked him about the running back Joe Morris. He said, Coach, that guy squatted 640 pounds, and he's like, but that led to him telling me a story about David Meggett coming in there, and he weighed 176 pounds, and he could squat 500 pounds, and he wanted to stay over the summer after rookie minicamp was over because he didn't have anything to go back to. Well, the Giants, he was against the rules, so he kind of hooked him up with the Russian coach, and he said, all right, what does he need to be doing? And the Russian coach said, at his body weight, there's no reason for him to be squatting 500 pounds. 2 times his body weight, and make him squat faster and faster. Set his body weight, or set his 1 rep max for back squat as 2 times his body weight, and then keep making him progress by moving the bar faster and faster and faster. And he said that took David Meggett from a rookie that might make the team to a guy that could do a 1 rep max squat of 550 pounds if he wanted, because he kept getting stronger because of the power he was building, and he went to 4 Pro Bowls, And then he's back to talking about, and you're just like, holy crap, it's man, I'm telling you, I call him as much as I can. It's like, what a great guy. And if you ever get a chance, and you could call him, well, maybe not right now, but you could call him, tomorrow night at 7:00, and he would take you in and welcome you and answer every question, and will tell you what he thinks, and if he thinks you're not doing something right, he's going to tell you, but that's what you want. And so it's just been a great experience, but he's absolutely right. I probably will never be able to go back to scheduling and programming anyway. The only thing he doesn't really like that I do is he's not a big fan of the tier system combined with the volume. He likes to do it a little bit different. And so I've kind of modified the tier system a little bit to reflect that. But, he's a 4-day-a-week guy, and we're a 3-day-a-week. So there's little things like that. But as far as being just a knowledgeable, helpful human being, Coach Parker's the man.
That's great, Coach. I was going to ask you a question about what are you excited about learning and improving on this next year, and it's pretty obvious which one you're excited about or what you're excited about. And it's got me thinking here. Every show I'd love to come away with something that I just really can think about and see if it's something that I'd want to implement at some point. Well, obviously, once I learn enough. So I got a decent amount of learning here to do first. So instead of asking, go on.
I was just going to say I jumped in just having a real basic overview that I got from Coach Decker. I jumped into it and tried to do it based on the outline he gave me. and I was about 70% right. And I still don't know. I'm still not 100% right, but I keep working towards that goal. So like you said, yeah, that's what I'm trying to do, is master what the masters are teaching. It's like, I'm like, here's a Star Wars reference, but I'm like Luke Skywalker, and I'm just going to Yoda because I think I know everything. And then all of a sudden he's like, oh yeah, you don't know anything really. So here's what you don't know. And he just teaching me. And so that is my goal, is to keep working with those guys to master this, over the next year. If that's the one thing I'm trying to do, that's going to be it. I'm going to these guys, and Coach Decker and Coach Parker are amazing. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good with that. So what I was going to ask is what are some of the resources, your favorite professional development resources? So you said you met these guys at clinics, and you said you read the system 7 times or whatever, Sounds like you're doing a great job with professional development. So if you want to give us a rundown, maybe something that you regularly do for professional development and the ways that you get better as a coach, why don't you shout that out for us?
Well, I'll tell you right now, and I was just talking to a couple guys the other day, and everybody that I talk to, I tell them this: if you are not joining the National High School Strength Coaches Association and you work at a high school strength program, you're really missing out. I mean, there's great coaches that aren't part of it, but I'm just telling you, the professional development it's insane what you get from going to these clinics. I was talking to a guy this morning that has not been to a national conference, and I'm a proud original member, because I knew Coach Schofield before this came up, and so as soon as he started this, I was in. But this will be our 3rd national conference, and I've been to NSC national conferences. I've been to every time of conference you want. Most of those things, you're looking to get 1 or 2 things to take back. But, the NSC, I went to Charlotte. I mean, I'm not talking bad, but it was kind of like, everybody was just trying to, like, walk around like I'm this guy type of thing. And it is not that way at the National High School Strength Coach Association at all. And I learned at every event I've been to, I walk away with like, all right, here's how I can adjust what I do, because, one great piece of advice I got from Coach Parker and Coach Decker, both, again, talking about those guys, but was don't change what you do just because of something somebody else does or is, but try to figure out how you can take what you're learning from these people and make what you already know and do even better by making slight adjustments. And I'm telling you, you go to a National High School Strength Coach Association national conference, and you sit there and listen to Kevin Vanderbush or Fred Eves, Gary Schofield, Micah Kurtz, Garrett Keith, these guys, you're talking to them, whether it's in the hallway or, like in the pre-conference where they talk to you for 8 hours, and you walk out of there with 100 things that you're like, okay, I got to trim this down a little bit because I just walked out of there with so much information, and then it's not just, it's not just the Facebook page, but once you start forming a relationship with these guys, you realize that the humbleness, the humility that these guys have. I mean, to me, Coach Schofield is like the man, the great high school strength, like he is what high school strength conditioning should be. I mean, I just called him today and asked him a question, He was like, hey, brother, how you doing? I mean, it's just like, that's the resource, man, I'm telling you, because, I went on the high school association cruise. I'm on there with 150 high school strength coaches, and it was like I've known every one of them all my life. Talking shop, getting to know them, that's the resource, man, I'm telling you. Get involved in that. Join that association. I think it's $100. It's so well worth it. If you anything you need from those guys, you get, and that's what it's really about. And it is the whole thing is #family. And I can't say enough, it is #family. It's just a great thing. So that's my big resource.
That's awesome. I'd echo that, Coach. Yeah. There is no doubt the amount that I've learned from just having conversations with coaches, either on the Facebook platform in the group or whatever, or at the clinics and conferences. And and the regional stuff and the national stuff, man, it's opened a lot of doors of just information that would never been available to me, and it, like that information is only as good as you being able to implement it and being able to build relationships with guys that are going to help you out along the way to help you implement that stuff. Man, that's crazy. And it's good. I mean, I think that your spiel, your pitch there to have everybody be an NHS SCA member, I'd go for it, man. I would recommend it to any high school strength coach around the nation. Need to.
No doubt.
Coach,
and I'm telling you, people probably listen to me and say, that guy steals something from everybody. Hey, that's what it's all about, learning and we all steal things from everybody and having your philosophy but it's not even stealing when it's with these guys, because they're just like, hey, take this and figure out how to make it's just a great thing, man. It's a great thing.
That's great stuff, Coach. We're coming to the end of the show here. And
right.
I appreciate all the information that you've shared. Okay, but these are a little bit different. And the first one, it doesn't have to be strength and conditioning. A lot of people throw out that strength and conditioning, but the first one is your favorite book. What's your go-to book?
Well, I would say The System, but so I want to throw out something else. I think that the book Legacy about the All Blacks is, and I'm sure that you've probably had people already say that, but I can't say enough about, that introduction to a truly high performance culture and the way that those guys go about things. That was a great book. From a non-strength conditioning standpoint, I'm a history guy too. I just got done reading a book that I would highly recommend for anybody that's a history, Civil War fan. It's called Our Man in Charleston, and it was about a British politician / spy that was stationed in Charleston in the 1850s up through the Civil War, and it kind of gives you the lowdown on kind of the British Empire's point of view about the whole thing and how close they did or didn't get into getting involved in the war, things like that. And that's an unbelievable book too. But I'd say Legacy and Our Man in Charleston are my two favorite, most recent books that I've read.
That's awesome. I like the Legacy book. I haven't checked out that one. I guess the other one, I'm not as much of a history buff, but it does sound interesting. So that's good. Coach, what about your favorite caffeine source?
I would say anything that has a lot of caffeine in it. Unfortunately, one of my vices is pre-workout. I probably should not, I've had friends of mine that they're like, man, if you got to take caffeine to get fired up, but I kind of drink it like coffee sometimes. Not as much as people drink coffee, but I'll get up and drink pre-workout in the morning if I'm dragging a little bit, so that's probably, I know, even if I'm not working out, I'm just going to work. I'll be like, yeah, I need some of this. So that's probably, I would say that. And, another, I do drink diet soda, and I know that's terrible for you, and I probably, shouldn't admit that, but that's probably a go-to.
All right. How about your favorite quote, Coach?
My favorite quote is Master the Ordinary. We have that hanging all over our weight room. I mean, I'm a quote guy, so there's quotes all over the place. But, Master the Ordinary, I preach that to our kids like, if we would just do the most basic aspects well, you are going to have such a relative advantage over your opponents, and not just that's what I tell them, not just the weight room. Like, imagine if you just did what your parents asked you to do to your best ability. How much easier would that make your life? Imagine if you walked into math class and just did every single thing the most basic things the teacher asks of you to the best of your ability. Guess what's going to happen when you get to the hard things? they're going to be easy, because those basics are what gets you to those hard things. And, so my big pet peeve is when we are warming up, guys talking, and, that drives me crazy, because, those, we don't just go through a warm-up, a random warm-up. We're doing things very specifically to lead to the next step, And I preach that to our guys, like, if we would just do the most basic things, just the ordinary things, and you do them better than anybody else, you're going to be in such a good place in your life, and you could translate into that's a life lesson, and I wish I should do, and I tell them that. Me too.
Yep.
If I would do every basic thing throughout the day, the best of my ability, everything would be so much smoother and to go so much better in life. It's human nature to kind of try to coast through those basic things, but we're always looking for that relative advantage, that 1%, that micro improvement every single day. And if we could just do the ordinary things to the best of our ability and master those, and that's probably the thing I say, other than bar speed, which isn't really a quote, I just preach it a lot, but master the ordinary is probably what I say probably more often than anything.
That's awesome. I just wrote that down, and our football theme this year, we try to do like the one word stuff by John Gordon, and we're just going to do 1%. It's another thought that, like a lot of people have had, but like just getting 1% better every day. And
incremental gains. I know that's an economic term, but you can use that in any aspect, incremental, and it's such that 1%, if you get 1% better, just add 1 penny to your bank every single day, you're going to be rich at the end,
Yep.
So.
Yeah, that's I underlined how to get to 1% better. And it's master the ordinary. So that's great. Coach, what about your favorite hobby outside of training?
Outside of training, let me think about that.
Sounds like a tough one.
Yeah, it seems like all I do is come home from work and lift and then eat, and it's like time to go to bed. But I would say it's probably, people are like, "Are you serious?" But I still collect baseball cards. I'm really into baseball cards and baseball, Major League Baseball itself. But so probably that is the hobby, that I have. That's kind of my go-to thing when I don't have any. When I have a down moment, is I'll go and buy a couple packs of baseball cards and go through them, or I'll sit here and watch it. I'm a big New York Yankees fan. I grew up kind of on that border of Pennsylvania, New York, and so I ended up a big Yankees fan that way. And I was actually watching them beat Boston when you called. But so I guess that's my hobby. Is you would think I'd be a big NFL, college football guy, but it's really baseball is my thing.
That's really cool, Coach. All right, the last one. Who is a high school coach that's killing it and deserves a shout out?
Have you talked with Brian Boseman yet?
No, I have
high
not.
School? That's a guy that I would definitely talk to. Yeah, he's doing a great job at Cummings, and he's a good friend of mine. And I'm not just saying that. There's a bunch of guys, but Brian is doing an outstanding job, and we talk, weekly, and even engage in some healthy debate once in a while. But I can tell you that he's really making an effect, and it's a smaller school, and he's doing a great job over there. So I would definitely shout out to him.
That's great. I'll reach out to him. The coolest thing about doing this stuff is just hearing about people that are making the big time where they're at, and I love to hear other coaches, and it's really cool when I see one strength coach, cheering on another one, and engaging in healthy debate is an awesome way to make sure everybody's growing.
Man, our profession is so much different than most coaches. In football, it's not that way. You're not helping your guy. You're not helping the guy you might play.
Yep.
There's a lot of ego, and I was there. I'm not. That's what I can say stuff like that because I was that guy. You're not gonna help that guy. You're gonna, give him just a very vague. If you're a clinic, don't give away anything. Be careful about this. Be careful about that. Our profession, man, it's like, oh, you want me to tell you everything I do, especially me, because I will talk, as you can see. We'll just open our doors and tell you everything, and that's one of the great things about this, man. It's just awesome. I love being a strength coach and just being able to be part of this community. It's awesome.
Yeah. Coach, that's awesome stuff. I'm going to link your contact information in the show notes so people can reach out. It seems like a small deal, but when coaches are so willing to reach out and talk and gather more information and build those relationships, it's a cool deal. So I'm happy to have you on. It was definitely unbelievable. My sheet right now is completely full. I'm gonna have to type these up and figure out the things I want to start to look at or implement. And I'm just appreciative, Coach. Thank you.
I appreciate you. Thank you.